Welcome to Garden City Church, a place where you can belong before you believe. This week, George gives us part 2 of Following Jesus. If you'd like to partner with us here at the channel, there's 3 ways you can do that. You can like and subscribe, you can share this video with a friend, or you can partner with us financially. You can do that through our website, or you can mail us a check. We love you guys so much. Let's get into the Word with George.
In the beginning of John, some potential followers, some not yet followers of Jesus ask this question, where are you staying? And Jesus responds, he says, come and see. And then later, it says the next day, Jesus wanted to go into Galilee and found Philip. And Jesus said to him, follow me. This is the second week of our new series called Following Jesus. And we're really answering that question. What does it mean to follow Jesus? And really allow the gospel story and allow the words of Jesus to help define what that means. And what we've looked at last week was the first invitation often is come and see, come and experience, come and make this a lived experience and evaluate for yourself. And then the next invitation often is come and follow. So we see this movement from come and see to come and follow in this kind of process of learning how to follow Jesus. Today, we're going to consider 2 elements of following Jesus, following as trusting and following as learning. So let's start with the first. Following is trusting. Back to John chapter 1, verse 43. The next day, Jesus wanted to go into Galilee, and he found Philip, and Jesus said to him, follow me. And Philip was from Bethsaida, the hometown of Andrew and Peter. There's a lot of relationships that you're kind of learning about at the beginning of the story. In verse 45, Philip found Nathanael and said to him, we found the one Moses wrote about in the law and the prophets, Jesus, Joseph's son from Nazareth. And Nathanael responds, not with excitement, not with like, oh, this sounds great. You found the one Moses wrote about. He just says, can anything from Nazareth be good? Can anything good come from that place? It's kind of a humorous moment. And Philip just responds to it and says, come and see. So we see here, Philip trusts Jesus enough at this point to begin following him and inviting others that he knows and loves to come and see as well, to decide whether they will come and follow, whether Jesus is worth following, worth knowing. And then in the story, we see that Nathanael doesn't quite trust yet because he hasn't yet seen for himself. He's interested, but he's like, can anything good come from that place? The element of trusting when it comes to following Jesus is really where we begin to grow. And we grow in trust. There's like a momentum as we begin following Jesus. There's a strengthening of trust that grows over time on that journey. And so trust grows on the journey, but following Jesus and learning to trust Jesus doesn't mean we don't work through doubts and tough questions. Doubts are worked through along the journey. Disciples like Nathanael, who's like, can anything good come from here? He has a doubt. Or later in the book of John, a character named Thomas has huge doubts about his faith and about Jesus. And both those characters have the ability to express and work through their doubts as they follow Jesus. So doubts and troubles actually strengthen our trust on the spiritual journey. Now, I think, an example might be, I think of my wife and I, like the moment I met her, the moment that we first went on a date, through to the moment we got engaged and the moment where we said I do and got married, there was a lot of trust that was being built. There was a lot of relational, connection and knowledge and getting to know each other, getting to see each other's personalities and really learning, hey, do I trust this person? Do I trust them for this stage and then this stage? And by the time we were ready to walk down the aisle, we loved each other. But I don't think we were without like some fears and some anxieties because we just don't know the future. And I think sometimes people want like certainty when it comes to marriage or relationship. The reality is you never have certainty, but you can, I think what you're looking for in relationships are trust and love, but never like full certainty. And I'll say there was a point in our dating and engagement where we both just had to say, you know what, like I trust and love this person, and we've gone through a lot of ups and downs of life, and our trust has grown. Their characters always come through, and so at the end of the day, we decided to get married, and that journey's been incredible. But the doubts and the concerns and the anxieties are part of, I think, strengthening love and trust. And so it is with following Jesus. Dallas Willard, really great discipleship and spiritual formation and philosopher, just an incredible writer and thinker. He wrote this about doubt. He says, if you're going to be a doubter, you need to believe your beliefs and doubt your doubts, as well as doubt your beliefs and believe your doubts. Sounds like a philosopher, right? He goes on to write, this is how knowledge and trust grows. We keep this process ongoing in conversations with others, listening to good speakers, inquiry of various kinds, and read books on various issues of concern. This can be time consuming, so we do these things in fellowship and share what we are learning. And listen up here. It is so important that our fellowship be open and that people feel encouraged to admit and talk about their doubts. They are a good thing to talk about. Dallas was a philosopher, and he knew questions are at the root of philosophy, of understanding our world and understanding ourselves and being able to test out how we're perceiving reality, if it's right or if it's wrong, if it's good, if it's bad, if it's healthy, if it's not healthy. And when it comes to following Jesus, Jesus creates an environment where our doubts and our concerns and our troubles are welcomed, and they're part of the growth of trust in him. So following is trusting. Now let's move to the second element we're talking about today, which following is learning. Now, earlier in the story in John chapter 1, two disciples begin to move toward Jesus. In verse 38, it says, when Jesus turned and saw them following, he asked, what are you looking for? What do you want? And they said, Rabbi, which is translated to teacher, where are you staying? The reason them calling him and referring to him as rabbi or teacher, someone to learn from, is that they were putting themselves in the position of being a learner, a pupil, or a disciple, which was the term for someone who follows a rabbi and takes on their way of living and their way of life in the world. And that means they're learners. Following as learning means that we're admitting hey, we don't know it all. We also are submitting ourselves to learn about, and not just through in the Western world, we think of learning and knowledge as primarily idea and concept level knowledge. In this culture, it was embodied, practical practice, practical wisdom. And so taking on the identity of a learner was being willing to practice a new way. And Jesus is the teacher and they are the learners. We see this also in Matthew 11, this call to follow as learning. We see it in verse 28. It says, Jesus said, come to me, all you who are struggling hard and carrying heavy loads, and I will give you rest. Then he says this, put on my yoke and learn from me. That's an interesting statement. Put on my yoke and learn from me. But that really is getting after is this idea again of learning. Taking on the yoke of someone back then is taking on their teachings, taking on their way of life, and acknowledging that there's something about the way this person lives that I need to learn and want to learn. So Jesus says, take on my yoke and learn from me. Jesus goes on to say in this passage, I am gentle and humble, and you will find rest for yourselves. My yoke, my teaching, my way is easy to bear, and my burden is light. So again, the yoke is taking on the teachings of someone, and Jesus is saying, my teaching, my yoke isn't going to be heavy or burdensome like the religious teachings and the religious rabbis and leaders of that day and age. There's a lot of rule following and a lot of heavy burdens that people had to take on. But Jesus is saying, mine is life-giving. My way, my teaching is life-giving, and it's light. And it's so different from the heavy stuff that you've been carrying from the Pharisees and other religious leaders. So to learn from someone, to become a follower, is to become a disciple. And following is learning to learn. Now, an important question that follows this is, learn what? Like, what are we learning from Jesus? And you really need to get a feel and a scope of the Gospels, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, to really get just the vista and the vision of Jesus. But if I was to kind of like, in a quick way to get at some of the basic and most important aspects of Jesus teaching, his way, from the Gospels, I would just give this for today. This moment in the book of John, where after teaching a really difficult teaching, many followers of Jesus were beginning to leave him. And Jesus asks the 12 disciples, who are like his core leaders, he says, do you also want to leave? Like, here's your opportunity. If you want to leave, if this is too hard, my way. And Simon Peter answered a really powerful insight. And he said this, Lord, where would we go? You have the words of eternal life. He's kind of saying, like, where else would we learn the way of life that is truly life? Although this might be hard, this teaching might be hard, and it's harder than come and see, and then this moment of come and follow has happened. But they're at a point where there's a high challenge being given to them. But Peter is just recognizing the other stuff is worse. Even though this might be a hard teaching for us, it's good and it's right, and we need it. Like, where else would we go to learn the way of true life? The invitation to follow Jesus is the invitation to learn the way of eternal life, the way of the kingdom, the way of love, the way of heaven come to earth. And Jesus is the teacher, the sage, the philosopher, the embodier, the rabbi who is the way to this eternal life, and the teacher of the way to live this eternal way. When we begin living this way of Jesus and learning it, you see, wherever people are learning and following Jesus, people are learning to forgive and be forgiven, heal and be healed, give and receive, free and be freed. I mean, just transformation follows, and we become more human, not less human. In fact, Jesus, especially in the book of John and places like in Hebrews, you see this reality where Jesus, basically he teaches this. If you want to know what the Father is like, if you want to know the character of God the Father, you look at me. Jesus is a picture of who God is. We won't always learn it right. We don't always get it perfect, I don't know if you've learned piano or instrument or a language, but when you learn that stuff, you mess up the notes, you mess up the vowels and the different verbs and the language. You kind of bumble through these things, but that's part of the learning process. And I love that about Jesus. And just like the disciples of Jesus in the gospel stories, we will fail and fall short at times. We'll mess up, the language, we'll mess up some of the music, not hit the notes right. But Jesus is a patient and good teacher. He knows that part of learning is failing and falling. But love, the love of Jesus, creates the context where we can fail and fall forward. So, how are you learning to trust Jesus with your life? Where are you seeing the trustworthiness of Jesus in your life or in the pages of the Bible? And then what are some new things that you're learning by following the way of Jesus? Or what are you curious about learning in following the way of Jesus? Next week, we're going to be looking at a few other elements of following Jesus. So I want to invite you back for that. I love you so much. I'm so excited to be on this journey and this teaching with all of you guys. See you next week.
Blessed are the ones who do not bury, and all the broken pieces of their heart. Blessed are the tears of all the weary, pouring like a sky of falling stars. Blessed are the wounded ones in mourning, brave enough to show the Lord their scars. Blessed are the hurts that are not hidden, and open to the healing touch of God. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him.
Blessed are the ones who walk in kindness, even in the face of great abuse. Blessed are the deeds that go unnoticed, serving with unguarded gratitude. Blessed are the ones who fight for justice, longing for the coming day of peace. Blessed is the soul that thirsts for righteousness, welcoming the last, the lost, the least. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. Blessed are the ones who suffer violence and still have strength to love their enemies. Blessed is the faith of those who persevere. And though they fall, they'll never know defeat. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Your hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. Hold on a little more. This is is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on